Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show again. Today, we're going to give you some great traveling tips.
Yes.
And for this episode, I have invited Tim. And Tim is not just somebody who's arranging travel agent. He's actually a professional, I would say professional traveler, because he's the one who's traveling. So his tips are from traveling, from real
Yeah.
experience. That's really exciting. Hi, Tim.
Hi. Yes, I'm not a travel agent. Some people have accused me of being almost the level of booking my own travel to a travel agent one, but I'm not a travel agent. But I have visited all 50 US states and that involved visiting I think about 40 of the US states in the last 10 years. So I've
Mhm.
traveled an awful lot in the last 10 years, and I'm also known for going to every conference ever known to mankind. So I do know I have a lot of bitter experience of learning how to travel and book travel.
Yeah, and that's what I like about it because travel agents they usually try to push the
Yeah.
sale instead of telling you the real information, and that's why to get the real tips from the real people, that's what makes it sound different. Besides all the 50 states in, have you been? What other countries? You're originally from UK, right? Or
Well, I'm based in the UK at the moment, so I'm in London. I'm
yeah.
talking to you from London in the United Kingdom,
Mhm.
and that is
But
my
what?
base.
But what other countries beside the states?
Well, I've been to Canada, Mexico, lots of Western Europe, so France, Germany, lots of Eastern Europe, Prague. I've been to China, been to Hong Kong, been to UAE. I've never been to, well, I've been to Mauritius, which is normally in Africa, but it's not in Africa. And I've never been to anywhere in South America. So if you want South American travel tips, I'm not the person to talk to about that. But I've been to a lot of places.
Yeah.
And to come back to your point about travel agents, there are some very, very good travel agents. I mean, there's a
Mhm.
couple of general points I make. When I've been, because I've got a YouTube channel where I
Mhm.
put videos occasionally when I get
Yeah,
round to it.
and for the viewers, that the link for the Tim's YouTube channel is on description.
Yeah. So it's Tim Lewis TCF. So just my name and put TCF, and that should find it in the search. But what I've learned from doing that and from interacting with other travel people online is the first thing you need to realize about travel is there's a lot of money floating around in the travel industry to promote things.
Mhm.
So a lot of, if you watch the highest level travel bloggers and blog YouTubers and influencers, they will be paid by a resort or a place to go there. And by all means, watch those videos to find fantastic places to go, but don't think they're going to be the cheapest places or the best value
Mhm.
places. Those are the place, those influencers are being paid a lot of money to go and visit that resort. The best tips to find on YouTube or other travel are people who independently travel and have a community of people who pay them stuff rather than people who are being paid to promote particular resorts.
Mhm.
Um, no, I mean, to be fair, if anybody wants to come and pay me large amounts of money, I'm quite happy to go and visit the resort. But that is something to bear in mind. And I've written a list of vague tips down here. So
Mhm.
one of the good things about that is that typically the reason why travel agents is quite lucrative is that they, similarly, if you book a trip with a travel agent, they will be paid like 10, 15% of your hotel typically in a fee for booking that particular hotel. So
Mhm.
again, it's, I mean, there are very good travel agents out there, but there are also some travel agents who will just, given the choice between somewhere they get 20% for and somewhere they get 15% for, they will book you on the 20% place. So
Mhm.
that's human nature. But when it comes down to booking something like a hotel, there are like websites which are called cashback sites. This is one of my first tips.
Okay.
In the US, the situation's a bit more complicated, but in the UK, there's 2 cashback sites, Quidco and Top Cashback. And if you go to their site and book and select Expedia or Booking.com or one of the big things, they will pay you cash back. And then you select that and go to that particular site. They will pay you cash back when you do the booking. And that can be up to 10, sometimes 15%. You can get a cashback payment for that hotel. It takes 6 months or so to actually get you paid after you stay.
Yeah, but still.
But still. Now, the situation is more complicated in the US. I think topcashback.com exists. So that's a separate one. But I remember there were particular rules. Certain states, for whatever reason, will not pay you affiliate income from these sites. So you'll need to check that your particular state, it will tell you on the site that you can't get cash back. But some state, and I think it's like to do with religious reasons or something. Some of the states in the Midwest they won't pay you affiliate income. So that's one particular tip. The other tip is more if you're trying to book a hotel and it's just a general hotel. The other tip, and this is true for both hotels and airlines, is if you have one particular airline or hotel chain that you stay with, you should join their loyalty program and then do enough to get some sort of status in it. So, I mean, the popular ones are Marriott, Hyatt, Best Western have got a scheme. Now, obviously, this depends a lot about where you're traveling in the world. So, for example, Hyatt are very big in the US. There's lots of Hyatt hotels in the US, but the rest of the world, there's hardly any Hyatt hotels. So even though their scheme is supposed to be really generous, to visit Hyatt hotels 30 times in a year to get the highest status is actually quite hard if you're not based in the US and you're not. And also their hotels tend to be a more expensive thing. But this is, I suppose the main tip I have with hotels and travel in general is all this money that's floating around to pay travel agents and other things is available to you in cashback or in affiliate, in loyalty schemes, basically. They do give you the payments, but you need to be the trouble is, and this is where travel agents are useful, to get the best value from your travel, you need to put the work in learning all the tips and tricks and things. And you can do that by watching YouTube channels of people who have done it before, or you can just put the research in. And it's different where you are based in the world, what the right answer is. There isn't like, you should only book Best Western hotels or you should only fly BA. A lot depends on where you are in the world. And because like if you're next to an airport that only flies Southwest, then being on the Southwest loyalty scheme makes a lot more sense than if you're in London where there isn't, Southwest don't fly. So it's kind of like those are general tips.
I want to put in for a second as well that, for example, if you would choose one of those hotel chains, like Marriott actually owns also Ritz and all those other ones. And same with, I believe, Hilton owns so many other ones. So it's not just one hotel. You're not going to be able to just go to Marriott's. You're going to be able to go to all those other resorts and hotels they own as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like... there's an awful lot of Marriott hotels.
Yeah.
There's a lot. And the same thing applies to airline. And there are airline alliances. So there are really 3 big airline alliances. And even though each airline has its own loyalty scheme, usually, depending on the alliance, I think this is true with all of them. If you get status in one airline, you get status on all the airlines too. Well, you get status in the alliance, and that gives you most of the benefits. There are a few specific benefits. So, for example, in the last year, I've gone to all the effort of earning British Airways Gold status, which cost me a fair amount in travel. But that gives me One World Emerald status, I think it is. They've got weird, I don't know why they don't have gold and platinum, but OneWorld, but I think it's because all those programs. So if I fly on American Airlines, who are also a OneWorld airline, I can use all of their lounges. I get priority boarding. I get extra luggage allowance because I'm a OneWorld Emerald status person. And that's what I think a lot of people don't realize, is that they will think, oh, I should join the American Airlines scheme, when they might actually be better off joining the British Airways scheme. If they fly semi-regularly to the UK, the British Airways scheme is a lot easier to achieve status in than the American Airlines scheme. But on the other hand, the American Airlines scheme is a lot easier to achieve status in than British Airways scheme if you don't fly a lot, because you can earn it by just spending on their credit cards in the US. Most of the US airlines, so Delta, American Airlines, you don't actually have to fly to earn status. You just have to spend lots and lots and lots of money on their branded credit card. Where with the British Airlines scheme, at least at the moment, I think it's moving more towards the credit card side of things, but it's about points you earn from flying. So if you learn how their scheme works, you can earn a lot of points by flying a certain amount of places, and then you can get status from that. So there's a certain amount of education required, educating yourself about all of these schemes. And so it would be hard, because I mean you're based in Florida, aren't you? In Naples, in Florida. So what I would be doing in your case is I would be looking like who flies from your local airport, like, or whatever the nearest big airport is. I don't know if that is there an airport in Naples in Florida, or do you go to like Tampa?
Naples is just a private airport. Has a private airport, because a lot of people here have private airplanes.
Yeah.
But the closest one is Fort Myers, and the one that I know, what is the Delta, is, I don't think it's so high end, but that's like average what people fly.
Delta are a member of the SkyTeam Alliance, and they, I mean, there's Virgin, I'm trying to remember who else is in SkyTeam, Air France, KLM. It might make sense for you to join the KLM like loyalty program. If you've got a trip planned to Holland, I don't know, or the Netherlands. I should never call it Holland because I got told off for calling the Netherlands is what Dutch people call the Netherlands now. It's not. Holland is a region in the Netherlands. But anyway, there's a very good website which called flightconnections.com. And what it lets you do is you can put in an airport, and it will tell you where it shows you a little map of where you can fly. And it's fantastically useful for working out, like, because you might find there's another airport near to you that you can actually visit that has decent connections to other places. And it's also good for sharing where to fly from where to where and what the times are on the flights. So that's a very good website to look at. Generally speaking, there's a bit of an art to flight bookings. Actually, before we move on to flights, there was something else that took me years to work out for hotels, which apparently some people find obvious, but I didn't find obvious. And I think actually works a lot better since COVID's happened. And that is because you can so easily get cancelable rates now. So you can book a hotel and cancel it. What you can do, and what I've started to do, is if I know I'm going to a particular event in like a year's time or 6 months' time, I will book a cancelable hotel booking for those dates now. And then I'll put it on a little spreadsheet with the number and what the cancellation terms are. It's usually like you can cancel within the worst within a month of when it's booked. And then every month or so, or sometimes every week when you're getting up to it, I will check to see if the price is cheaper. If it is cheaper, I will cancel the original booking and rebook it. And that works surprisingly well in terms of saving money. And for years, I was just always booking like, oh, because you can usually get a slightly cheaper rate if you have a non-cancelable hotel booking.
Mm-hmm.
But for most hotels, it's like
you get a better price because they have like deals and yearly deals going on, promotions. So yeah.
Yeah, they have a better price, but it's usually not enough to bear. I would book the cancelable rate if it's a long term out, because you just need the price to go down low enough, and then you can get the rate. And they go up and down a lot. Hotel prices. People don't appreciate this.
Especially like some locations, probably
Yeah.
because I know Florida is really seasonal.
Yeah.
So there are certain months then if you need to book ahead, like a year ahead, but then like season goes down, the prices all go off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is the other thing. Obviously, when the time you actually book, as in like the days, or not the days you book, as in when you book, but the actual when you're going to the hotel, the physical actual date, the final booking date, those vary a lot. So typically speaking, with hotels and flights, if you do have a weekend within that booking, it's cheaper in general. So flights on a Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday are usually a lot cheaper than if you're trying to fly on the weekend. And if you're doing a business class booking, if you've got a weekend between the start and the end dates of that flight, that makes things cheaper as well. There's also a lot of weird regional things, certainly with business class flights. So, and not just business class. So, if you're crossing the Atlantic or the Pacific, return flights are usually only slightly more expensive than single flights. So, if you fly JFK to Heathrow, often you'll find for both economy and for business class, it's only slightly more expensive to fly return. I really have no idea why this goes, but if you're flying intra the US, that doesn't really apply. So if you're flying from Naples to Detroit or something, return is usually double the price, and you can do a single and it's worth it. I've heard that it's the same across the Pacific, but I've never actually really booked a flight across the Pacific yet. So I haven't quite got to Australia yet, so I don't know that. But there are weird regional things like that. So a lot of the time you just need to learn them, really. Another business class tip, which applies going to Europe to the US, is that Heathrow is a terrible place to book a business class flight to the US from. Almost anywhere else in Europe is cheaper. So if you fly from Dublin Airport, even if you fly via Heathrow, it can be up to half the price of a ticket from Heathrow. And the worst thing you could do probably would be to book a single ticket from Heathrow to JFK business class or first class. You will get terrible value. So at least book it return, and probably you want to go from Dublin or somewhere else in Europe, where the cheap places are. For years, it used to be Sofia in Bulgaria was the cheapest place to fly from. Barcelona can be cheap sometimes, like Bucharest. Sometimes in Eastern Europe, they have cheap flights, but Dublin seems to be the most consistently cheap place to fly.
Yeah, it's like here you would go, for example, for the US viewers, just the cities around you, watch the cities around you, because the prices are so different with the airports as well.
Yeah.
From here, it's like I have option of Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Fort Myers. So I'll go to different sites, and different airports have different prices. So you have to look at all the towns around you, the biggest airports around you, and see which one is the best one to fly out of.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing that's weird and this is again a general rule of thumb that might not be a rule of thumb, is that for economy class tickets, you generally want to look for big airports. So Miami would be the case.
Okay.
For you. For business class, you want to look for smaller airports. So
okay, I didn't know that.
It's weird. I mean, I sometimes I go on. There's this Flyer Talk community, which is like a community I sometimes go on, and there are people in the US looking for cheap business class flights. There are lots of cheap flights from places like El Paso, but you never see cheap flights from LAX or JFK for business class. But for economy flights, because there's so much competition for economy tickets between the big destinations, though, if you're flying economy, then somewhere like Miami, there will be more competition.
Yeah,
it's very weird, and as I say, it's not a hard and fast rule. The tip is just to look, is to check everywhere.
But it makes sense.
So one of the best sites to use is Google Flights for searching. And what people don't appreciate is that you can search for areas. So you could say Miami to Europe. Unfortunately, it doesn't let you say United States to Europe. So you'd have to go through all of your local areas if you were flying to Europe. And then it will give you a map of Europe with all of the prices for those dates. And you can actually do it without dates, and it will give you the cheapest flights for the next 6 months in that area. But you can give it a region. I think you can even say Northern Europe. So that's a way to find. So there might be a very cheap flight to Amsterdam, for example, and it's like, well, Amsterdam's really easy. You can get to London from Amsterdam really easily. Like there's very cheap flights because there's lots of discount flights in Europe, and there's also discount flight things in the US. So it's kind of like if you want to. I mean, you obviously do. You're losing some degree of convenience when you're trying to get cheap flights. Yeah. But if you want to get cheaper business class flights, usually you're best off looking for somewhere near where you are to somewhere near where you want to go, and then getting a cheap flight at the other end and maybe at your own end to try and get from one to the other. And then you've got this nice business class bit in the middle. And the advantage to paying for business class flights, rather than what you will see a lot of the time is people pushing points redemptions, is that you earn status with the airline group. So as we come back to if you pick one airline within each airline alliance and you put everything to that. So if you were flying Air France and you've joined the Delta scheme, you would, even though you're flying with Air France, you would put your Delta number on the loyalty program. And hopefully you get up to it depends how much effort you want to put into learning the scheme, but you will get to the status upgrade, and that will eventually get you to the point where if you fly on any of these again, you will get all the loyalty benefits. So yeah, I started making a point there, but I think I made the point. I'm not sure.
I have a question before you continue.
Yeah.
Do you have notifications on as well? Like, do you get an email? Do you sign up for email notifications for flights or something?
No, but it's a good idea. You can do that on Google Flights. I think there's quite a few services out there. I tend to just use Google Flights, and there's also a website called ITA Matrix, which is the same back end. It's run by Google as well. It's ITA Matrix is kind of Google Flights on steroids, and it's very much more text-based. For most people, ITA Matrix is too complicated, to be honest. But the reason why a lot of people use ITA Matrix is you can do things like specify, I want to connect in this city, or I want to connect in this place. So for those of us who are chasing airline status, so for example, the British Airways scheme is purely based on flights, more or less. You can get a little few points for credit cards, but and they give you a certain number of points, 40 points, if your flight is under 2,000 miles. And then they give you 140 points, or this is business class, if your flight is over 2,000 miles. But that flight could be 6,000 miles or 8,000 miles. So if you flew London to LAX, that's like 4,000 miles. Doesn't make any sense from a status thing to fly direct. So when I was I got a fare from Dublin to Dublin, and then flew to Heathrow, and then flew from Heathrow to JFK, and then from JFK to LAX. And why did I do this? Why didn't I just fly from it? Well, it was cheaper because it's from Dublin. I got 40 points from flying from Dublin to London. Then I got 140 points, which is the maximum kind of because it's over 2,000 miles from Heathrow to JFK. And then I got another 140 points from going from JFK to LAX. So that's where something like RTA Matrix is useful, because you can specify the connection points. Because airline, we kind of think naively that these airline fares are simple things, but they're more like contracts. They're not really. But when you're buying an airline ticket, you're buying a contract with the airline, and it's to get you from A to B. How they do that is kind of defined in the contract. So you might have a ticket from like London to LAX, and you're initially booked onto that flight, but straight direct flight between them. But their actual contract is to get you there, and that could be via any number of complicated routings. So they can fly you via Philadelphia or something. And they've got various fare rules within the rules about how they should redeem it and like where they should put you. So when you buy an airline ticket, it's really a contract between you and the airline. And there's lots of routings they can do, and you can book specific flight combinations. And it sounds a bit odd to personally choose not to fly direct to places, but sometimes for status reasons, it makes a lot of sense not to do that, if that makes sense. All right. What else have I not said? I did write a list of things. Oh, yeah. Another thing, talking about both flights and hotels. Sometimes you're best to buy a package. Going back to the old package thing. So like British Airways, for example, have got an offer on at the moment. You get double status points if you buy a holiday with them. So you buy the flight, and then you have to buy 5 days holiday. And usually there's a discount if you buy that package. And it can be with somebody like Expedia too. Obviously, you're giving up a lot of the cancellation ability if you buy a package, but sometimes buying an airline and hotel package together can be the best thing to do. So that was the only thing I had that I haven't actually already mentioned.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So where are you going next?
I don't know. I've got.
Well, you don't have any plan, right? That's different. You always had some next early plan.
Well, I'm kind of semi taking the summer off because I'm so used to flying somewhere in the summer when it's in the UK. I thought I'd take like June and July off. Well, not June because we're in June, but July and August off. Possibly go somewhere in September. I got a lot of points I can use, so I'm probably going to fly to somewhere in Asia. I don't know exactly when though. Towards the end of the year, I would guess. So that's my next destination, Asia or Southeast Asia, I think.
That's cool. So where in Asia you have been?
Well, I haven't been to that. I've never been to anywhere in Southeast Asia. I've been to the United Arab Emirates, so Dubai. I've been to Hong Kong. I've been to Shanghai, Macau, and somewhere else. No, that's it.
Well, I have a question about this kind of thing. So when you go to Hong Kong and everything, because I've seen a lot of people posting different videos of China or Japan, and like the electronics and all this structure is so advanced compared to what we have. So what are the like some of the really cool things that you noticed?
Um, well,
Does it look really?
bear in mind, I'm from Europe, and we are ahead of you when it comes to like touch
Yep.
technology. It's not, I don't know why the US is so backwards in like you've got things like Venmo, you kind of have bank
Yeah,
transfers.
I noticed that too, that we're behind from even from Europe.
Um, one of the reasons why China apparently, and this wasn't true because it's been a while since I've been in China. I think it was 2012, but
Mm-hmm.
in, and this is going totally off topic, but in the rest of the world outside China, Apple and Google are the people who dominate phones. In China, it's all run by like these big conglomerate companies.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do like there's a lot of things that are not happening in the West because Apple take like 30% cut of anything you buy on an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So in China, it's all the same people who are doing the e-commerce side. So you can pay with QR codes and you scan stuff and you do things. It's all just one big application, and there's
Okay.
nobody taking the cut because it's all run by the communist government, really.
Mm-hmm.
Well, here we haven't had that same thing because it's even like with buying audiobooks. It's only now that you can kind of use your credits on your Apple phone without them, but they still try and push you towards the browser to buy things on Apple. So that's why China, especially, I think Japan to some extent, but
Mm-hmm.
that's why they're ahead because they haven't got this kind of Google and Apple trying to take the money of all the small providers. So anyway, that's a little bit of a controversial statement, I think, to finish
Yeah.
off on.
But it's interesting to see. I would like
Yeah.
to see that as well, like different the technology, like the advanced technology and all
Oh
that.
yeah,
Cool to see.
yeah.
So that's good. Okay, Tim, our time is running off as well. Like any specific, really most important tip for traveling? Have
Um,
fun.
well, the cheapest fare is often not the best fare as well.
Okay.
So, I mean, we've all been like, especially those of us in Europe who have things like Ryanair, but you have equivalents like Spirit. So you'll often see like a really, really cheap airfare from your airport. But be careful about things like, do they charge for check-in? Do they
Mm-hmm.
charge for carry-on bags? Do they charge for going to the toilet? I don't think any of them do yet.
Mm-hmm.
But when you consider those things, and also like if you have to get to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning, is it worth losing out like those extra hours of sleep? Is it worth having to spend lots of money on a taxi when you could get a bus there for half the price because the bus doesn't run at 4 in the morning? These are the kind of things you need to think about. And sometimes it is just that, like, I would rather get a flight at 12 at midday rather than 4 in the morning, even though the 4 in the morning aircraft ticket is like half the price. So
Mm-hmm.
that is the final tip. I think that's like, don't be obsessed with just the lowest cash value, but you can almost certainly get better value. And it will take you time. Sometimes you also sometimes you just have to pay the cost of it and
Mm-hmm.
done with it. There's only so much. The more time you put into booking something, the cheaper you can get it and the better value you can get. But
Mm-hmm.
sometimes if you need to go to somebody's funeral next week or whatever, sometimes you just need to go and just book something and be
Mm-hmm.
done with it. So don't let your entire life be spent looking up stuff on travel sites. But it is an interesting hobby to have.
Yeah, it's just like if you know some certain tips, you
Yeah.
can just at least get the better. Like what I'm saying, it's not about getting it cheapest; it's about getting the better
Oh
value.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Exactly.
like it might be a little bit more, but you get a better quality. So,
Yeah.
like have that quality and price aligned with each other. And sometimes it might be more expensive, but less quality still the same way.
Well, yeah, that happens
Yeah.
more than you'd think. Sometimes,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, okay, Tim, thank you so much for your time. And for the viewers, hopefully you got a lot of tips. And thank you for your attention, and look for other shows. Bye. Go have fun in your day.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.